Your way is the only way forward. It's a narrow road that leads to life, but I want to be on it. It's a narrow road, but the mercy is wide, 'cause you're good in your promise. I'll take you at your word. If you said it, I'll believe it. I've seen how good it works. If you started, you'll complete it. I'll take you at your word. These spoke, and the chaos fell in. I know, 'cause I've seen it in my life. It's a narrow road that leads to a life, but I want to be on it. It's a narrow road and the tide is high, but you're parting the waters. I take you at your word. If you said it, I'll believe it. I've seen how good it works. If you started, you'll complete it. I'll take you at your word. If you said it, I'll believe it. I've seen how good it works. If you started, you'll complete it. I'll take you at your word. 'Cause you did a promise. Oh, you're good in your promise. You said your love will never give up. You said your grace is always enough. You said your heart would never forget or forsake me. Oh, you said I'm saved. You call me yours. You said my future's full of your hope. You've never failed, so I know that you never failed me. You said your love will never give up. You said your grace is always enough. You said your heart would never forget or forsake me. Oh, you said I'm saved, you call me yours. You said my future's full of your hope. You never failed, so I know that you'll never fail me. I take you at your word. If you said it, I'll believe it.
Seen how good it works.
If you started, you'll complete it. I take you at your word. If you said it, I'll believe it. If you started, you'll complete it. I take you They couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise, treasures that fade, never enough. You came along, put me back together. Every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley. There's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. I want you to declare this part. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. Say, you turn praise into gardens. You turn roads into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing, nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. You turn praise into
So this week I was in a conversation with someone who was, they were just like, hey, I want to be honest with you. Like, I just don't get faith. I struggle with it. It just seems so complicated to me. And I was sitting there and I was listening to him talk through, like, you know, trying to process faith and kind of like the fact that I'm a Christian and how it seems to have changed my life. But how have I wrestled with it being complicated? And I said, you know, honestly, it's not that complicated. I said, now, I think it can be complicated, and we can make it complicated. I said, one, you know, there is a large media presence that likes to paint Christians in kind of single strokes and reduce us down to like one type of thing and one type of person, and completely ignores the diversity and the beauty of what God is doing. And I said, you know, and they want to ping the crazy uncle and make that the entire family, right? We all have some kind of crazy family member. Let's just be real. If you don't, it means you're the crazy family member. Okay, so I'm sorry. But we all have one. But they don't speak for the whole family. They don't define the love for the whole family. And I said, you know what? Sometimes the crazy uncles in the Christian faith are the ones everyone hears. But there's a whole family filled of people, filled with love, who are transforming the world in the way they live their lives in their living room, on the ball fields, and in boardrooms, and nursing homes, and everywhere in between. And I said, it's actually so simple. I said, faith is about Jesus and what you do with what he said, with who he is. And I said, that's it. And I love the simplicity of this song, which for some of us, maybe if you're kind of relating to the guy I was referring to, you can be like, it's not that simple, and it really is. That there is a God who created you. Long before your first breath, he knew you, he knew your name, he knew your hair color, your eye color, he knew the sound of your voice, your thumbprint, because he made it. He created it. And that he, in our moments, in the best and the worst and in the in-between, is arms wide open saying, come to me. I love you. I made you. I have a plan for you. I have a purpose for your life. I wrote your life down and what I dreamed that you would be and who you would become through my son. And it's just this beauty. And maybe for some of us this morning, before we jump into the message, you can't even hear a message because you're holding on to something that's got to hold on to you. And my prayer is that through that song, you would just have heard the God of the universe saying, hey, you don't have to hold on to that anymore. Let me hold on to you. And let me be your foundation. Let me be your floor. Let me be your rock. Let me be your security. Let me be the breath in your lungs. Because he gives strength to those who are weak. He gives joy to those who are mourning. He brings life to those who are surrounded by death. And it's a beautiful thing that you've walked into this morning. It's more than a music concert. It's more than a lecture or a speech. It's the presence of God who's calling out to you and to me, come to me. I have love I want to pour over you. I have grace that I want to give to you. You're not enough, but I am. And so I just want to welcome you with that this morning to Encounter Church. That's who we are. That's whose we serve. That's what he is and what he's like. And I want you to be able to drink that in this morning. That there is a peace and there's a love and there's a joy and there's a grace that's willingly extended to all of us if you're willing to take it. And so I'm excited about this morning, excited about this, continuing the series Dallas kicked off called Filters. It's one I've been looking forward to for a little bit. So with that, you can have a seat and we'll kick off Filters in a few seconds. vacuum cleaners. So in 1980, Hoover in England was one of the biggest brand of vacuum cleaners ever. It had a unique distinction of being the official vacuum cleaner of the royal family, which in the UK is kind of a big deal. But because of this up-and-coming company called Dyson, Hoover was starting to face a decrease in market share. And so Hoover and their executives kind of circled around the table and said, how do we deal with the coming recession, our extensive excess supply that we have, because we're losing market share. They had tons of vacuum cleaners that they could not sell. And while they were brainstorming, they were approached by a travel agency who had overbought tickets for European flights. And they said, hey, we want to collaborate with you. We think we have a solution to your problem. And the idea was this. If you buy a Hoover product, you spend £100, we'll give you 2 free tickets to Europe. Right? And so they loved the idea, and they went with it. Now, Hoover had estimated if everybody who buys a vacuum cleaner actually followed through, that could be bad. So what they did is they orchestrated a near almost impossible paper system in order to claim your tickets. And it worked. Only 1 out of 10 customers who bought a Hoover actually ended up getting 2 plane tickets to Europe. And on top of that, they completely cleared out the excess product they had. And so the executives are all excited. Hoover is kind of surging back, and they're like, we've stumbled upon genius. So they double down. They're like, what's something that would be even next level? And they said, oh, tickets to the U.S. We'll give 2 free tickets to the United States of America to people who buy vacuum cleaners, anything over 100 pounds. Now, they brought in some risk consultants because they were like, hey, we want to make sure, we've seen this work with the European flight section with the tickets. We want to see, do you have any concerns for the American? The risk consultants come in, and they look at their plan, and they're like, this is ridiculous. We refuse to be hired by you because we think you're making such a bad decision. There is no way as risk consultants we can help you. It's kind of a stark warning, right? It's like my college professor who would say to me sometimes as a way to encourage me to study more, Mr. Causey, you've just made us all dumber by what you've just said. And it was just something that literally was said to me almost weekly in my chemistry class. And so, this is what they say to the executives there. And the executives are like, we think you're wrong. So they went with it. They published it. Now, you need to know that the vacuum cleaner that they were selling, that was the predominant one, was about 150 pounds. They made 30 pounds profit off of every vacuum cleaner they sold. The tickets at the time were 600 pounds a piece. So they made negative 570 pounds on every single vacuum cleaner they sold. They realized very quickly when all of a sudden everyone started buying Hoover vacuum cleaners. So people were buying, instead of buying plane tickets, they would just go buy Hoovers. So people's homes in England would have 3 or 4 vacuum cleaners. And so Hoover had thought they had developed the paper system that would kind of make it hard. But for people, this was the equivalent of a $1,200 value in today's money. So people are like, we'll jump through the hoops to get free tickets because it was like New York or Orlando. Those were your 2 locations. If you're in the UK, that's the place you want to go. They should have made it Des Moines or something like that where no one would have wanted to go. But no, they make it Orlando or New York. So people are jumping through the hoops. It gets so bad that Hoover stops and just pretends like they're not getting people's applications. Someone ends up holding a Hoover employee in a van hostage for 17 days. Parliament has to get involved. The royal family gets involved and forces Hoover to pay for the plane tickets that they promised people, which ultimately, at the end of the day, cost Hoover 171 million pounds. It's over $200 million. all because some executives got in the room and thought this unbelievable deal was a great idea. It's a slow motion train wreck. It's the epitome of a bad decision. I don't know about you, but I've made some bad decisions in my life. And I imagine you've probably made some bad ones in yours. Like, probably one of the dumbest things I've ever done was when I was a teenager and I was riding on the back of a truck and we were on a dirt road, and I had this thought, because I hadn't taken physics yet, that I bet if I jump out of the back of the truck and start running, the moment my feet hit the ground, I'll be able to keep up with this truck. And so I got to the edge of the back of the truck, got my feet running, and just jumped straight up and kept running till I hit the ground. When my feet immediately stopped and my body began to roll almost underneath the truck, I almost killed myself because I thought in my head, this seems like a great idea. Because the problem is, just like Hoover, none of us make bad decisions and in the moment think, this is the worst decision I've ever made. It feels good. It feels right. We feel like we're making progress. In the end, we're just introducing pain. And what I want to do today is give you some filters. I want to take you to a moment. It's about 2,800 years old. But this moment is a lot like the Hoover executives. It's just an anatomy. I'm going to do an autopsy of this bad decision that we're going to read about this morning. Because I think this decision, even more than the Hoover decision, gives us insight to why we make the bad decisions we make and how we can actually avoid them. And in the process, maybe end up introducing better decisions and fewer regrets into the course of our life. So it's a little bit of an ancient moment. It begins with Rehoboam, who goes to Shechem, for all of Israel had gone there to make him king. Now, what you need to know is Rehoboam is the son of Solomon. Solomon is the son of David. David had established the kingdom of Israel. He had made it a military kind of powerhouse. But it's Solomon who really comes along and makes the nation of Israel great. I mean, he leads them through not just military, but financial, economic, structural, buildings, infrastructure projects. I mean, Solomon makes Israel a powerhouse in the Middle East. And it becomes a globally known nation. Solomon is famous for his wisdom. Leaders from all around the world travel to him in a day and age where people did not travel long distances. And so Solomon had built these magnificent structures and these cities and out of the desert. And so Solomon, when he passes away, Rehoboam, his son, is the one who's next in line. And so what you see here is kind of the ancient equivalent of a marriage ceremony. So when you were about to become king, you would appear before your people. And it was this, in a sense, it was marriage. It was, I will be your king, you will be my people. And the people were like, we will be your people, you will be our king. Shechem is in the middle of a valley. It's super spacious. And so it's this place that's really just ideal for this large gathering. And it says, when Jeroboam, son of Nebat, heard this, he returned from Egypt. And this is important because in the middle, we find out why he's in Egypt. See, during Solomon's reign, Solomon's building this great empire, and Jeroboam attempts to lead a coup. Now, Solomon hears about this, and in very much ancient kind of ways, tries to kill him. So Jeroboam flees to Egypt, where under the Egyptian king, he's protected. Now, when he hears about Solomon passing away, he decides, okay, now's my moment. And so he travels to Shechem. Now it says, so they sent for Jeroboam, they being Israel. So Jeroboam gets there, and Jeroboam convinces the nation he should be their spokesperson before the king. So here's this guy who tried to lead a coup under his father, who's now the spokesperson for the marriage ceremony. And it says that they go and they say, your father put a heavy yoke on us, but now lighten the harsh labor and the heavy yoke he put us, and we will serve you. Now, the thing you should know about Solomon is Solomon built this great empire on the backs of his people with heavy taxation and conscripted labor. And he paid them, but he forced them to work. So the great temple the great palaces that Solomon had, they're all built and paid for by Israel. And the nation is exhausted. The men, the sons, the daughters, they're tired. And so they say, hey, Rehoboam, like, can we just all decide what your dad did, you won't do? And if that's true, we'll serve you. And so Rehoboam answers, come back to me in 3 days. And so the people went away. Now, Rehoboam goes and consults the elders who served his father, and he says, how would you advise me to answer these people? And they replied, if you will be kind to these people and please them and give them a favorable answer, they will all be your servants. They will always be your servants. Rehoboam hears that, but rejects it. And so then consults the young men who'd grown up with him and were serving him. Now, here's something you need to know about the way this wording is playing out. Because it's possible you could hear this story and you're going to say, Rehoboam was just young and stupid. But the word young here is being derogatory. Rehoboam is 41 years old. Hardly by anyone's account would ever be called a young man, especially in ancient Israel, right? So these young men are not young in age, they're young in naivete. They've grown up privileged. They've grown up in the court of the king. They're connected to Solomon and his family. They are his boys. They're the ride and die of his life, right? And so he rejects the elders, the old men who sit across from Solomon, the wisest man who had ever lived at that point. So he rejects those guys, and he goes and he's like, all right, boys, what we gonna do? I mean, this is essentially what happens, okay? And so he asked them, what is your advice? How should we answer the people who say to me, lighten the yoke your father put on us? And their response, who had grown up, they said, the people said, your father put a heavy yoke on us, make it lighter. You now tell them, my little finger is thicker than my father's waist, which is a proverb. Your little finger is one of the weakest parts of your body. Your waistline, your glutes, right, your maximus back there, is some of the strongest part of your body. And he's like, look, my dad's greatest strength doesn't even compare to my weakness. Like, my weakness is stronger than his greatest strength. It's just this proverb, this bravado. He says, my father laid on you a heavy yoke. I'll make it heavier. My father scourged you with whips. I will scourge you with scorpions. Now, before you have in your head scorpions being like hit with people, that's not what he's referring to. A scorpion was a type of whip that had metal or bones at the very end of it. So it was like a scorpion's tail. And it was a whip specifically used for slaves. So he's essentially saying, go tell those people, my father conscript you, I will enslave you. So really inspirational stuff, right? And so 3 days later, Jeroboam and all the people returned. Rehoboam, as the king has said, come back to me. The king answered them harshly. Rejecting the advice of the elders, he followed the advice of the young men and said, my father made your yoke heavy, I will make it. So he completely quotes his boys. And what ends up happening is the empire splits that day. In his bravado, he literally, in one conversation, destroys what his father and grandfather had built over their 2 lifetimes. It is far worse than Hoover's decision to give plane tickets away with vacuum cleaners. Because that day, civil war could have broken out. And the 10 tribes split from the 2 tribes because Israel, as the nation, was comprised of 12 different tribes of people. And this massive split happens, and Jeroboam becomes the leader, and Rehoboam has to run for his life. It is the epitome of a bad decision. But if you play it in slow motion, you're willing to do an autopsy like I want to do for you, what you actually see is how the bad decision progressed. And there's some principles, there's some filters that I want to give you that can actually serve as an antidote to bad decisions in our lives. The first one happens in this moment right here in 2 Chronicles 2, 8, and 9. When he goes to the elders, he says, how would you advise me to answer these people? But notice what he says to his boys. How should we answer these people who say to me? Which is an interesting way of asking that question. it points to a deeper principle at play. It points to what is part of the reason this is a bad decision in the first place. And it's a bad decision that it's a filter, unfortunately, that we can all fall trapped to. And it's this, that he was more focused on the group than the think. Like he was more focused on what his group was saying, what his group thought he should do, than actually spending time as the leader of the nation thinking through how properly to respond to them. And this is something that we all fall trapped to, right? I mean, it's not just middle school. Right now, my daughter is in middle school, and the most important thing in her world right now is what does her friends think? Not what I think, not what her mom thinks, what her friends think. And she's like, my friends will think that's stupid, or my friends will think that's weird, or my friends will think that's not cool. And I'm like, your friends have been around the sun the same amount of times as you have. And you don't have a clue about most things, and they don't either. I'm like, it's like taking financial advice from someone who is always broke. Like, it's a bad idea. And yet, that's what she wants to do. It's like, well, this is what my friends think. I'm like, your friends are stupid. Because I was stupid when I was that age. And I didn't have a clue when I was that age. And you're taking life, it's like listening to your uncle who's been divorced 3 times and getting relationship advice from him. Like, unless you want to get a divorce, you shouldn't be talking to him. Because he doesn't know how to have a healthy marriage. Because he's never had one. And I'm like, your friends are insecure. That's all they think about, is what do other people think about them? Like, horrible filter. But this is it for her. It's like the group. But I can laugh about it, but if I'm being honest, I'm just a mature version of a middle schooler. Because we fall into the same trap, too. As parents, I look at other parents. What are other parents doing? Right? And it's what gets weaponized with us when, well, they all have phones, so why can't I? And I said, those parents don't love them as much as we love you. You know, it's like usually whenever she brings something that we don't do, other parents do. That's my default answer. I'm like, well, honey, some parents just don't love their kids as much as we love you. And she's like, ugh. And it's just like, it's awesome. But that's my default. But I'm being honest, I feel the pressure too. I see other parents doing things, and I'm like, oh, are we messing up? Are we doing something wrong? Like, I second guess myself because I see the group doing it. I see how the group lives. I see where the group goes. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe that's where we should go. Maybe that's what we should do. And in reality, I can fall into the same ditch of group, not think. And look, group, there's some things that the group thing is helpful. It's a shortcut, right? If we had to make every decision like originally, we would just run out of life, right? So you ride by a restaurant and the parking lot is full. You're like, oh, okay, I bet that's a good restaurant. I should try that. Like, that's a good example of like group dynamics where it's helpful. But there's a lot of times where in the midst of bad decisions that are playing out in our lives, it's because we've started listening to a group. Either explicitly, in that they've actually said something to us, or our friends are giving us advice, or a YouTube channel of someone telling us how we can become rich when we know absolutely nothing about this person and whether or not they even have any money, right? And then sometimes it's just implicit. It's peer pressure. It's how they dress. It's where they go. It's what they do. It's everyone else is dating. I should be dating. Like we fall into those ditches. And if we're not careful, this becomes one of the filters that leads us into making a bad decision or listening to bad advice. And if you're a teenager, look, I get you want to push against the power of your parents, but reality is that like there is a way of gaining experience without the pain of experience. And it's listening to people who paid that price so you don't have to. I call it avoiding the stupid tax, right? So my son, one day, will probably have the same thought I did about jumping off the back of that truck. And he can avoid the stupid tax of almost being run over by listening to me who almost got run over. And many of us, it would be powerful if the people you brought into your life, if you're struggling with your marriage and you look around and everyone else in your circle is struggling with marriage, find someone whose marriage is strong. Take them to coffee. Offer to buy them dinner and ask them, what is the secret? If you've been fortunate enough to grow up in a home where your mom and your dad, they love each other and you see that and you've watched that, like that is a gift. Ask them what the strength of their marriage is. Stop watching TV shows with dramatics and people who just react and form some new role models for how you should be acting. And this is true about every area of our life. You want to learn how to manage your finances? Find someone who's been financially successful. Take them to coffee. Ask them questions. I mean, it goes a long way. I mean, I literally got mentors when I discovered I had cancer. I called two men who I knew had walked through it brilliantly and beautifully. And I said, will you mentor me while I have cancer? Because I've never done this before and I'm scared. But you have, and you did it well. So will you teach me how to do that? And they said yes. I mean, if you can get a mentor for cancer, you can get a mentor for anything. Okay? And this is the power of finding people who think and help you think. And that's a really helpful filter. But there's another one. It says the young men had grown up. They respond and says, my father scourged you with whips. I will scourge you with scorpions. There's this young man response of like bravado and arrogance because Jeroboam's on the other side. And we gotta be swole. We gotta let Jeroboam know I'm Rehoboam and you don't want to mess with this. And so they're like, let's flex our muscles. Let's let people know how strong we are. But the elders, they say, hey, if you'll be kind to these people, if you'll have humility and you listen, you pay attention to what they're saying and you respond. Not just say what you want to say, but respond to what they're saying. He says they'll always be your servants. You'll always have a kingdom. And Rehoboam doesn't listen because he falls into this second trap, this second filter, where he's more focused on the moment than what matters. And now this one trips us up. Because the moment, the emotions are surging, we feel it, we know what we need to say to put them in their space, in their place. And the elders are like, no. What matters if you're a king is that you have a kingdom. What matters if you're a king is that you have subjects. So if you're willing to be humble right now, then you'll have a kingdom and an empire for the rest of your life. And he doesn't listen. He's more focused on the moment. He's more focused on Jeroboam. He's more focused on presenting an image of strength and power and showing up as dad. When in reality, his dad was one of the wisest, wealthiest men who had ever lived on planet Earth. Solomon is still in the top 10 of wealthiest people who have ever lived in the history of humanity. Like he's still, even in the midst of Jeff Bezos and Rockefeller and all of those kind of barons, Solomon is still on that list. 2,800 years later, like that is substantial amount of wealth. And he's like, no, I'm going to show him I'm even better than my dad. And it's just a dumb thing to do. But he's focused on the moment, not what matters. And a lot of times in bad decisions, this is what happens. We're focused on what's in front of us. We're focused on what's playing out. Like I think as one of the things that scares me most about being the father of a son is I think one of the scariest things that can ever happen is when a bunch of young guys get together and one of them says, I have a great idea. It is usually not a great idea. Some of the dumbest things I've ever done started with one of my friends saying, I got a great idea. Because men's IQ somehow drops collectively when we get together, right? I mean, it's fun, it's funny, but we get dumb real fast. And it just scares me about my son. I'm like, oh my goodness, what is he going to do? because I know what I did when some of my friends said I have a good idea. So I'm just hoping he's like, better than me. But it's because the moment, not what matters. And when we're thinking about our lives and those bad decisions that we're potentially playing out, it oftentimes falls into this trap. We're not thinking about financially the decision, the implications of that decision. We're just thinking about the impulse. We're not thinking about the implications for the relationships when we say that thing. We just say, man, if I can get this off my chest, I'll feel better. And we don't actually think about, will this make the relationship better? And one of the things that's been helpful for me is something I picked up in a book a long time ago. It's the 10-10-10 frame. And the idea is to hit pause whenever if I'm making a decision, to press pause and to say, in 10 minutes from now, what am I going to think about this decision? 10 months from now, what am I going to think about this decision? And 10 years from now, what am I going to think about this decision? And I'll be honest, as a father of a little preteen who knows everything, this helps me. Because there was a time this week in the car where I literally was like, Chris, 10 minutes from now, you're going to have dropped her off and you're going to be filled with regret if you respond the way you want to respond right now. 10 months from now, 10 years from now, she won't even remember this conversation, but you will have dented her soul and will have withdrawn relational capital. Because in parenting teenagers, it's nothing but hills. And so figure out which hill is actually worth fighting and dying on. And in the moment, it feels like all of them are, especially the them. But for me, I had to say, oh, you know what, 10 minutes from now, 10 months from now, 10 years from now, I'll say this was stupid. Why did I say it? And so I just kept my mouth, I just stopped talking and changed the subject. And this has helped me in so many ways. The reason I'm the pastor here, and I was offered a job at a church with about 25,000 people, a potential path to become their pastor. I would have moved to a warm place. I would have made far more money than I'll ever make here. I would have had a really nice house and a swimming pool and tornado warnings. And I turned that job down because of here, to be the pastor here. And it was because of this frame. Because I was like, 10 years from now, I'll look back and I won't know if God showed up. Maybe. But I'll know it here in a way that I don't think I'd know it as clearly there. And last night, you walked in this morning and you saw how the room was decorated. And for you who were not here last night, I just want to say, I'm so sorry you missed it. Because it was an amazing hour. We laughed. We laughed so hard. And it was just this it just as a church, I left last night and I was just like, I'm so grateful I get to be the pastor of this church. I just love you. And I love being with you and just being a part of this. And it was just a really refreshing moment driving alone home last night. And it was because of this 10-year frame. And so this can be a powerful shift and change for you and I when we're trying to make decisions. Because 10 minutes may not give you the perspective, but 10 months, 10 years. And I tell my daughter a lot of times right now, I'm like, hey, that group that you think is so important 10 years from now, you probably won't talk to half of them. I don't even remember the names of a lot of people in middle school that I used to wake up every morning try to impress. And it's just true. And so this 10-10-10 can be a really powerful filter in helping to serve as an antidote for this tendency to make a bad decision. But the last one I want to give you is perhaps the most powerful one. It's the one that is subtle. It's in this line right here. It says, rejecting the advice of the elders, he followed the advice of the young men. Because here's the thing about listening to losers. Here's the thing about listening to the voices in our lives that we shouldn't be listening to. The voices we listen to often becomes the life we live. And it's this just true reality of life. And that there's a really helpful paradigm that I've found that's been powerful for me, which is learning to distinguish between a voice and a vote. And what I mean is you're going to always have voices in your life who are going to advise things that you should not do. You're always going to have that. And what most of us never realized is that we actually have the power to just let it be a voice and not a vote for how we live. And for some of us, we have walked into bad decisions because we never thought about separating the two. And that there can be a voice, but that doesn't have to be a vote. And this has been something that's been really, if someone's like, hey, you're really intentional about your life, how do you do it? I'd be like, the cheat code is this. This is it for me. I have some of the same stupid voices in my head that I had when I was an insecure middle schooler. And the same insecurities then would be the same insecurities now. The same struggles I had then aren't too far off from the same struggles I could have now. The same doubts I had then aren't too far off from some of the same doubts I could have now. But I'm okay with those voices because I learned I don't have to give them a vote anymore. And that changed how I lived. And I didn't realize how powerful it was until I got cancer, until my first round of chemo. And so just be really candid. Every 2 weeks when I go through chemo, there is a period of about 4 days where the fatigue is brutal. And I was warned about the fatigue early on by a phenomenal nurse that I have, Joyce. Like, we love Joyce. Joyce is a part of our family. And Joyce warned me about chemo fatigue. She said, hey, Chris, you need to know your body's going to experience something it's never experienced before. And chemo fatigue is not like regular fatigue where you just take a nap and it's gone. It's a fatigue that affects your whole body. You're mentally fatigued, you're physically fatigued, and it's because you've poisoned your body, and your body is trying to fight to live while simultaneously having so many things inside of you innocently dying as kind of just bystanders in the war that you're waging against this cancer. She's like, there are going to be times when your body tells you want to take a nap, and to be very honest with you, it's probably just not true. A nap's not going to fix you. What's going to fix you is that you just have to push through. And man, Joyce was so right. And every 2 weeks, there's about 4 days where I stand at the base of my stairs, because my kids' rooms are upstairs. And I stand at the base of the stairs and I stare and I just think, why do we live in a house with more than one floor? That's my first thought. And then my second thought is my son has asked me to play with him. Or my daughter's asked me to come upstairs and do something with her. And I stand at the base of the stairs, and the voice inside of my head screaming at me is like, hey, Captain, we can't do this. Like, we don't have the power to make it up these stairs right now. Like, you know that, we know that, you're trying to kill us. The answer is no. And I stand at the base of those stairs, and I grab onto the railing, and I walk about half of the way, and I get tired, and I have to sit down. Like, I'm a 42-year-old male, and I have to sit down halfway up the stairs and give myself a few minutes to collect myself because I'm exhausted. And again, the voice comes like, hey, gravity, it helps us. We could go right back down. This would be so easy. Let's just go to bed. Let's just take a nap. Let's just rest. And I have to say, no. We're going up the second half of the stairs. Get ready. Because while you're a loud voice in my head, you're not a voice in my kid's head. And just because I have chemo this week, just because you're exhausted this week, doesn't mean I get to ignore my children. Like, they've got a voice too. And their voice is, Daddy, I want to play with you. Daddy, I want to be with you. And everything in me is like, that's what gets the vote. That's what gets the final word. And I stand back up, And I'll walk back up the stairs. I get to the top of the stairs, and I have to wait again, and then I go into my kids' room. Because I don't want them to see me kind of like exhausted going up the stairwell. And I do that every 2 weeks for 4 days straight, because the only vote that gets allowed in those days are the votes of me being a father, me being a husband, because chemo doesn't suspend that. It doesn't cancel that influence and that role that I have in their lives. I'm the only one. I am the only one who will ever be their father. No one can replace me. No one can fill those shoes. So sorry, chemo. I hear you. I acknowledge you, but you don't get the vote today. Right? And I share that with you because I think for some of us, the life that you have felt you've been meant to live, the life that you were meant to experience is on the other side of you saying that. I've walked with some of you who've walked through addictions, and you made that shift where the addiction went from being a vote in your life to just a voice in your life. And it changed your family for generations to come in ways that you don't even see yet. And I've seen marriages transform because people shifted from letting the emotions and letting the pain and letting the anger be the vote that it speaks into their relationship, and they shifted it to a voice. And it changed their marriage. And there is another side to the decision that you're making that cannot be bad but could be good. And that many of us, if we just learn this dynamic, it would transform how we live. Because we live in a broken world. We're never going to get rid of the bad voices. They're always going to be present. They're always going to be the insecurities speaking in our head. Look, some of you have heard things said over you or had things done to you that were horrible, despicable, wrong, and should have never been done. But today could be a day where you stop giving them the final vote in your life. Where you stop letting them speak the final word over you because there's been a new word spoken. And it's just a voice in your life. It's not the vote of your life. And Rehoboam missed that. And he let their words become his way. And it completely destroyed the kingdom. I mean, and the beauty of being a Christian is this. When you start to follow Christ, his voice becomes the vote in your life. His voice becomes the final word over you. And so earlier when we were singing and we're declaring how God has said we're enough and that we are loved, and it's like, I've never been more loved than I am right now. Wasn't holding you up, so there's nothing I can do to let you down. Right? We're going to sing that in a few minutes. That's the word over us. Like, you're already loved. You're already chosen. Like, you're already pursued and redeemed in him. Stop trying to earn it. Christianity does not have to be complicated. You don't need to go to a guy to tell him what you've done so that he can tell you what to do so that you can be forgiven. You just go to the guy who's already done it, who already knows you've done it, and gives you the grace for it when you say, I'm sorry. Like, that's the beauty of Christianity. It's so much simpler than what we've made it or what we try to make it. It's simply letting his voice become the vote of our life, and it changes how we parent. It changes how we do finances. It changes how we date. It changes how we live. It changes how we do our taxes. It changes everything. And people see it. This week I had the flu, and this was playing out in my life because I had to postpone chemo, and like, if you're around me, there's an intensity I have to chemo that like, if a snowstorm came and I couldn't drive, I would walk 8 miles to my chemo appointment. Because that's life to me. That's where I'm fighting. And so getting the flu was devastating. Because my doctor was like, hey, you can't have chemo this week. And I'm like, I can do both. And they're like, no, you can't. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure I could try. Has anyone tried? I mean, like, you got any studies that says I can't do it? And they're like, no, you can't. But you got to go to the doctor because we have to make sure you don't have COVID. And because we can't let you have chemo next week if you have COVID this week. And I was like, oh. So I go to the doctor. And I sit down. And I'm like, here's why I'm here. And he gives me a flu test. And he comes back 5 minutes later. And he sits down with this heaviness. And he was like, I just read your chart. And I was like, I'm sorry. He's like, can I be honest with you? And I'm like, yeah, man. He's like, you seem really strong. You look really good. It's like the conversation we had before, now that I've read your chart, it's like, dude, you're an inspiration to me. He's like, how have you done it? And I'm like, for real? I was like, Jesus, man. Like, that's how I've done it. And we had this brilliant, beautiful conversation. The doctor hung out with me for 15 minutes in my room, talking about faith, saying, help me understand how what you have, because I didn't know that's a thing. I'm like, it's just Jesus, man. Like who he is and what he said and what he's done, and me just responding to that. And maybe for some of you, the first best decision, the greatest decision you could ever make is letting his voice become the vote of your life and how you live and how you walk and how you talk and act. And today could be that day. And it's really not complicated. It's just simple. God, I know I've messed up. I know I've sinned. I know I've failed. I know I've done it all. But that song I sang earlier said that your arms are extended and that there's grace. Can I just run to it? And the answer is yes. That grace is there for you. And so I don't know. So I wrote this question, and maybe this is a question that you need to think about. But in your life, who or what have you let have a vote that should only just be a voice? Maybe this is a question you need to kind of just put on your dashboard or put in your phone and just kind of revisit it a couple times this week. Because you'll probably find, like me, that there's some areas in my thought life, there's some areas in my finances, in my parenting, in my marriage, where I've let a voice become a vote. And it's time that I stop it. And the beauty is that God in his grace gave us this horrible slow motion train wreck so that you and I could have those filters to catch those moments when we're being more group than think, when we're thinking more about the moment than what matters, and we're falling into a trap of allowing a voice that we shouldn't have a vote become a voice that gets the final vote. And that with these new filters, my prayer is that you and I will find ourselves making better decisions and having fewer regrets. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you. Thank you for your word. Thank you for your love, for your grace. Thank you that you give us the power, honestly, to make a decision about a decision. To say to the voices in our lives, you no longer have a vote over our lives anymore. Thank you for how you've taught me that lesson through my cancer journey. I'm so grateful for it. It's made me a better father and a husband because of it. And I pray that this morning, over our own lives, in our own areas, that we would be cognizant of the places where we've allowed a voice to become a vote. And thank you for your voice, for what you say over us, for what we're even about to sing right now. And I pray that we would give that the final vote in our lives. In Jesus' name, amen. So like I said, we're going to close out today with just a song that really kind of embodies this voice vote. And I just love how the song starts, right? It's like, never been more loved than I am right now. And then that second line, I think somebody needs to hear this, right? Where I wasn't holding you up, so there's nothing I can do to let you down. And the fact that God is not disappointed in you. He's not looking over you saying you're a failure, you're a screw up. that he sees over us who he made us to be. For those who are in Christ, those who are forgiven, those who have been set free, it's just grace. And for those who have not yet started following him, his arms are open wide to extend that grace. And it simply says, you know what? You're enough. You're more than enough, God. And so if you've never heard this song, I just invite you to read the lyrics while they sing it. If you do know the song, I'd invite you to sing it a little differently today. To sing it in a way that says, God, I want to give these words the vote over my life, not just be another voice in my life. So I want to invite you to stand as our team leads us.
I'll never be more loved than I am right now. Wasn't holding you up, so there's nothing I can do to let you down. Doesn't take a trophy to make you proud. I'll never be more loved than I am right now.
Going through a storm, but I won't go down. I hear your voice carried in the rhythm of the wind to call me out. You would cross an ocean so I wouldn't drown. You've never been closer than you are right now. 'Cause you are
Jireh, you are enough. Jireh, you are enough.
I will be content in every circumstance. Jireh, you are enough. Forever enough, always enough, more than enough.
Whoa.
Forever enough, always enough, more than enough.
I don't want to forget how I feel right now. Mountaintop, I can see so clear what it's all about. So stay by my side when the sun goes down. Don't want to forget how I feel right now.
Jireh,
Jireh, you are enough. Jireh, you are enough. I will be content in every circumstance. Yeah. Jireh, you are enough. Ever enough, always enough, more than enough. Forever enough, always enough, more than enough.
I'm already loved. I'm already chosen. I know who I am. I know what you've spoken. I'm already loved more than I can imagine. And that is enough. Oh, I'm already
I'm
loved.
already loved.
Already chosen.
I'm already chosen.
I know who I
I know
am.
who I am.
I know what you've spoken.
I know what you spoke.
I'm already loved.
I'm already loved.
More than I can imagine.
More than I can imagine.
That is enough.
That is enough.
That is enough. I'm already
I'm
loved.
already loved.
I'm already chosen.
Already chosen.
I know who I
I
am.
know who I am.
I know what you've spoken.
I know what you spoken.
I'm already
I'm
loved.
already loved.
More than I can even fathom.
More than I can imagine.
That is enough.
That is enough.
with beauty and splendor.
beauty and
How much more will He
how much
clothe you?
more will He
How much more will He
How much
clothe
more will
you?
He
If He watches over every sparrow, how much more does He
How much
love?
more does He
How
love
much
you?
more does He
How much
love you?
more does He
Oh,
love
if He dresses the
If He
lilies,
dresses the
oh, with beauty and
with
splendor,
beauty
how much more will He clothe you?
How much more will
Our
He
God is
clothe you?
provider.
How much more
So
will He
don't
clothe
you worry.
If He watches
No, don't you worry. Our
every
Father, He loves you.
How much more
Our
does He
Father,
love
He
you?
loves
How
you.
much more
So
does He
how
love
much
you?
more?
How much more does He
How
love
much
you?
more?
How much more does He
How
love
much
you?
more?
How much more does
Our
He
Father, He
love you?
loves you.
How much more does He
How much
love
more does He love
you? Think or
you?
imagine, according to His power working in us. It's more than enough. It's more than you ask, think or imagine. According to His power working in us.
How much more?
It's more than enough.
How much more?
It's more than you ask, think or imagine.
Oh, yeah.
According to His power
How
working
much
in
more?
us.
How much more?
It's more than you ask, think or imagine. According to His power
How
working
much
in
more?
us. It's
How
more than
much
enough. It's more than you ask, think or imagine.
Oh, yeah.
According to His power
How
working
much
in
more?
us. It's
How
more than
much
enough. It's more than
You ask.
enough. It's more than enough. It's more than enough. Jireh, you are enough. Jireh, you are enough. I will be content in every circumstance. Jireh, you are enough. Chorus one more time. I will be in every circumstance. Jireh, you are enough.
So good. Just, I hope that refrain just kind of echoes throughout the rest of this day, throughout the rest of this week for you. That, man, He is more than enough. And what you're facing, what you're walking through, the decisions you're making, He's just more than enough for all of it. And that's the spirit, that's the power, the confidence, and the trust and the hope that we get to walk out of here today with. So we want to thank you for being here today, for being a part of this last hour of Encounter Church. And we hope that it was hopeful and helpful. We know that for many of us, your day's full. And so we hope that whether you're cheering for the Chiefs, the 49ers, the Buffalo Wings, or for Taylor Swift, that you have a great Super Bowl experience. There's no student ministry today. Just want to say thank you to our team members that just make this church possible, that just make Sunday possible, made yesterday possible. I meant what I said when I left last night. I was just like, I love being a part of this church. And the invisible superheroes are not always the people you see. They're a part of this team, but there are people back in the room. There are people in the broadcast room. There are people working with your kids. There are people greeting, making coffee. That all that happens because someone like you said yes to serving. And I want to encourage you, if you're maybe a part of Encounter Church, you've been coming for a little bit, and you're like, man, I'm ready to lean in a little bit. I'm ready to make this more of a community that I'm a part of. and less than a service that I attend, serving is a great way. If you're a teenager, we have places for you. In fact, if you watch the online service today, there's a middle schooler actually sitting in the back of the room who's learning how to switch the cameras, okay? So like we have a space for you here. And it's one of the cool things we see with middle schoolers and high schoolers who serve and who make Sunday happen. And so if you've ever thought, man, I'd love to be a little bit more part of the church, we have an opportunity for you. You can sign up to serve. There's different opportunities. There's times on Saturday you can serve. There are times during the service you can serve, before and after the service. And so I would encourage you, encounterchurch.com/serve, or even that QR code. And a special thanks to the people who give to Encounter Church, whether it's through our website or through the app. Your generosity is the reason we could invite preschool teachers from all over the region yesterday and have a free comedy hour and tell them, hey, we want you to know that we know you get ignored, that oftentimes you're the essential workers that people overlook in the process. And we just want you to know there's a church that loves you, that values you, that appreciates that what you do. And so all of them left with a free manicure as just a way of surprising them. It's just, we get to do stuff like that. We get to be a part of being a force of love and good in our community because you give. That's what you're giving to, is this church to put hands and feet to Jesus and his message of love and hope. So thank you for giving, for being a part of this movement. And we look forward to seeing you back here next Sunday as we continue our Filter series. God bless. Bye-bye.